pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Basil, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Basil here. Mrs. Bites.
Here.
Mr. Doty.
Here.
Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Mr. Rathke.
Here.
Mr. Speed. Ms. Kardowski.
Here.
Mr. Wolf.
Here.
Mr. Martino.
Here. Under announcements, there will be an executive session after this meeting to discuss some personnel and negotiation issues. So there's no misunderstanding about our last meeting. After the committee of the whole, we did have a closed-door session to meet our new athletic director, and then we had an executive session following that. One announcement that I need to make. These are all anonymous letters that I've received in the past week and a half. I will not address anonymous letters. They do concern school issues. So as soon as the person is willing to come forward and ask the questions that are in these letters, I'll be glad to address them, or the board will be glad to address them. But I will not deal with anonymous letters. Under agenda edits, and I've got a whole bunch of them here. Remove, under item 7, consent approvals, remove letter B concerning Lori Spatz. Under number 11, personnel approvals. Under letter C, C3E, remove Melissa Schaefer. The following are revisions. Under item 7, letter A, the motion to approve the attached course and credits has been revised. Under number 10, financial approvals, the motion to participate in the school-based access program has been revised. And under number 11, personnel approvals, pending all required paperwork, we need to add administrative review. And number 12, we're revising the motion to read letter G, motion to approve the letter of agreement and amendments between the school district and the medical staffing network for substitute healthcare staffing. And under number 13, policy, revised the motion to read letter A, first reading of revised administrative guideline, not policy, 707 G1, use of facilities. And the following are additions. Under number 11, personnel approvals, add to the agenda the motion to approve 2C Danielle Gulama as a nurse in Birdsboro, and letter D, Helen Small, a new teacher mentor for Danielle Gulama. Are there any other agenda edits?
Maybe, Mr. Martino, real quick, I thought maybe we should have a brief discussion, if we could add it to the agenda perhaps, on our school, our board policy about teleconferencing. That's possible.
Should we, or should that go to the policy committee? It seems to me if it's board policy, it should go to the policy committee first.
Well, it's not about a change to the policy, it's about I guess we need to discuss if it's being enforced.
I'm sorry.
It's being enforced.
Okay, I guess we could do that under old business or new business. Okay. Other agenda edits? Seeing none, we're having a presentation by Nutrition Group, who is our new food service supplier. Welcome.
First, thank you for having us here.
That's not on. Press the button
Press and hold.
briefly, and the red light will come on at the top. There you are.
Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
First, thank you for letting us present. We promise to keep it brief. We just wanted to make some introductions and say thank you for allowing us to come into your district. My name is Sarah Biggert. I am the regional manager for this region. Alonzo Price is in front of me, trying to get the projector going so that we have some pictures. Alonzo Price is your food service director. On the presentation, we just wanted to show you some things you can expect this year. We have a couple of programs that we will be implementing throughout the start of the school year. One being Wellness Wednesday. This is a way that we help the elementary kids try the new fruits and vegetables. You know, with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, they have to take a fruit or vegetable. So in 5 months throughout the year, we do free samples for all the students, whether they purchase or they pack. They're welcome to come up and try a sample of the fruits and vegetables listed on there. The next thing that we do is, Take Nutrition Global, which is in all of our schools, but featured at the secondary. So 5 months out of the year, we will feature a different country, and there will be a menu item focusing on those ethnic menus or dishes, just so that students can try something new. The next program is Farm to Fork, which we are very proud of. Starting September 14th, once a week, we will feature a local item, a local produce item that was grown in Pennsylvania that will be on the menu, in the secondary levels. Either will be raw or cooked, whichever way that we have a menu. And finally, Recipe of the Month, which is just some of our home style meals. We're trying to bring that back so there's more cooking, less processed food, and we're able to use a lot of our commodities this way. This again will be at all the levels but emphasized for the secondary. Alonzo just wanted to talk to you briefly, and then we will let you finish on the rest of your night.
And the last thing we want to go over is what we do here at Nutrition Group. We give you what is called a board report. I'll have a report, a synopsis of everything that happened in that month as it relates to food. So if you look at that board report that you have in front of you, which is just a sample, it shows you that we did a catering with one of the students from the special needs group. The second page has some of the things that we did as far as training with the employees. And the third and fourth page, which you don't have there, talks about your numbers. So we'll have your numbers versus what we budgeted for free reduced, how we're doing all that part of sales, so you have all that information. And then every once in a while, you'll see we throw in a little bit of a recipe or something like that, in case you want to try some of the things that when you come to visit, if you try and you like it, you want to try that on as well, okay?
Expect that once a month. We will have that report in front of you regarding Daniel Boone. That was just an example to show you what you can expect moving forward. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Good luck. Thank you. I also wanted to mention that Nutrition Group has, because there was some question about it before, but Nutrition Group has offered a job to all of our former cafeteria workers, and most of the former cafeteria workers are now working for Nutrition Group. I also wanted to mention that there is a back-to-school breakfast for the teachers on September 4th, and Nutrition Group is furnishing the breakfast for that also. So thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Do any of the board members have questions? Seeing none, thank you. Procedures for public participation, the procedures are the same as always. If you have a question or comment about an agenda item, come to the podium, state your name and address, and Mr. Wolf will start the recording for 3 minutes that you have to make your question or comment. As I said at the last meeting, and I said I would restate this a couple times during the year, of your 3 minutes, that is, unless there is inappropriate language or personal comments about board members, at that point we will cut it off immediately. Are there any presentations by the public on the agenda items?
I'll speak from here. I'll sign it later. What you just came up there was wonderful. let me tell you something. I don't know what part of the country you come from, but there's a lot of Dutch, Pennsylvania Dutch, German here. And I feel to see the country of Germany up there. I feel slighted. And a lot of people this should be too. Thank you.
He's got to sign in.
Mr. Sandlin, would you sign in?
Just a sample.
I'll sign in when I get
That
up,
was just a
yes.
sample.
Well, in the future,
Mr. Martinez.
in the future, Mr. Sandlin, we cannot allow comments unless you come to the podium.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Are you really kidding me?
Mr. Sandlin, lower your voice.
I have a quad tear. I can hardly stand it. You think I'm going to sit here and take your crap? That is ridiculous. You are a ridiculous person. Here's my sign in. There. Take it, please. I don't believe you. I really don't believe you. You just sit there and smarter. That's good, you know. This is exactly what this board needs. People like you to make a jackass out of somebody. Yeah, I just swore, so cut me
Okay,
off.
that's-
Shut my mic off.
Mr. Sandlin,
Mr.
We
Basil,
cannot-
I've had enough of it. Let's
We can ask you to
I'm not
leave.
speaking anymore.
okay, great.
All right. Come on.
I mean, for everyone else here, if there are any more outbursts like that,
Please get that in the press.
the board will take a break until the person is escorted from the meeting. Is there any other public comments?
Good evening. Diane Fox, 7111 Boyertown Pike, Douglasville. I basically wanted to give a special thanks to Mr. Rathbat. I've been here for several meetings. I've heard the conversations, and he actually listened to our experts who are our principals. At several of the meetings, Mr. Dave Miller showed what the classrooms would look like in the elementary schools. Mr. Preston McKnight told you that the high school enrollment wasn't changing. You voted, and you decided to cut positions. Now we have 2 weeks until school starts, and you want to bring these teachers back to the payroll. They've moved on, and we've lost that expertise. Our children are paying that price. Good luck finding qualified, good, prepared teachers within those 2 weeks. It's been all over the newspapers. We again are made to look like fools in Daniel Boone School District. You wonder why people don't want to move to the area. You say it's because of the taxes. It's because as a board, you are not listening to your educated experts. That was your choice. As a taxpayer, I'm requesting that you listen to them, and that next year is not a repeat of the fiasco we had this year. And thank you again for listening to what our principals have to say. Thank you.
The 2 positions that we added were resignations over the summer, correct?
Yes.
So they were already in the budget, and those people were already slated to start working this fall, and they resigned over the summer, and we refilled those positions at the last board meeting. So we didn't cut any additional people and then hire them back at the high school. You're misinformed on that.
Excuse me, elementary.
She's right. One's elementary.
That's based on enrollment, and we're discussing enrollment again tonight.
Is there any other public comment? Moving on to item 7, the consent items. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion for items 7A through 7B as amended.
Second.
Any comments or questions on 7A and 7B? Seeing none, Mr. Basil.
We have a motion by Mr. Wolf, second by Mr. Podolsky. This will be an unanimous vote for approval unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Is there a motion on the rest of the consent agenda? Before, let me restate that, or re-question. Are there any items any of the board members commissioners want removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, then the motion should be for the consent agenda.
I think you said 7B, right? Is it Boyd?
B.
Oh, you said B.
He has a mix-up.
My apologies.
It's 7B.
No, I said it is for the.
I didn't pronounce myself, sorry.
Yes, we're good.
Can we do that again then?
Yes,
Because I have
again.
a question.
Which item?
S,
are you talking
item
about?
S.
You want that cold?
Yes.
S. All right, so we're going to pull 7S from the consent agenda.
Is that okay to amend that,
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Dowski?
Yes.
So the amended motion is to approve the consent agenda 7A through 7V minus 7S, correct?
That's what I have.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Wolf, second by Ms. Twardowski, amended by Ms. Bites. Okay. This will be an unanimous vote for approval unless I hear votes in contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Mrs. Bites, is there
7S.
Yes. We are a restricting school district and we're routinely cutting aides and staff, and I'm wondering at some point if there could be some discussion on cutting administrators. And I don't see why we shouldn't be discussing at least the backup, the assistant business administrator as a part-time position. And secondly, I was told it was going to be a one-year term, but I'm seeing references to three-year terms through this. Benefits are covered through June 30th, 2018.
Yeah,
We can't have that discussion if we're signing a three-year contract.
I can clarify with regard to the 1 year versus 3 year. The term of this contract is 1 year. The reference to the 3 years is the administrator's compensation plan, which is incorporated by reference for the 1 year of this term, is a 3 year. So I was just trying to be specific as to the administrative compensation plan that we're referring to.
Okay.
So it would be the benefits from that plan for the 1 year.
Okay, so the term, but the term is clearly
The term
1
is
year
1
in
year.
item one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And to address your concern about administrative staffing, I do not disagree with that. However, we should have a new superintendent in place sometime this calendar year, I would hope. And I would think it would be incumbent on the new superintendent to review the entire administrative staffing.
Okay.
So having had that discussion, is there a motion to approve 7S?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Rathgeb, second by Mr. Doty. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Basil?
Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Ms. Twardowski?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 8 is a motion to approve the letter of agreement between the school district and the DCIU to provide student transportation to Vista.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Rathgeb, second by Mr. Doty. Comments or questions? I have, I guess, a comment and a question. We've discussed local transportation, our kids being on the bus. We try to keep it to a half hour or less. A ride to Vista, if I'm not mistaken, is in Hershey. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In morning traffic, that's got to be an hour to an hour and a half on a school bus.
That's about right.
And so that's an hour and a half in the morning plus an hour or so in the afternoon coming home. Is there not a way we can provide the same education closer, if not at our own school district?
It has to do with the child's IEP, so that that's why that service is rendered. Shelley, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to.
Yeah, and it's a very specialized school with specialized program.
utilize the program, I guess the question becomes, what would it cost us to provide that same program here and not have,
You couldn't,
why?
because it's an all-encompassing program from the minute they get there to the minute they leave. We do not have the facility or the staff. To have the amount of staff that they have in all of the different areas, the OT, the speech, they have behavior specialists, they have one-on-ones for the student, they have a teacher, the class size is very small, they have an OT room, they have a PT room, they do vocational training, they have communication devices. It would be impossible for us to do that.
It would be possible, but it's cost more than it was costing now.
Absolutely.
Well, Mr. Small, if you would it be possible to price this out, what it is costing us to send, what I believe, 2 students out here for this program?
And they're also 40-10 slots.
They're what?
They're 40-10. Both of those students are 40-10 slots, which means the state plays 60, we only pay 40. So the cost is not nearly what it would cost us to replicate last year.
Okay. I'd still like to see what it is costing us, you know. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Baker?
Motion made by Mr. Rathgeb, seconded by Mr. Doty for item 8. Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mrs. Twardowski?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 9 is an enrollment discussion, and it says it's led here by Mr. Martino, but actually this discussion took place at the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting, looking at the up-to-date enrollment numbers. As presented by Mr. Hurley at the curriculum meeting, to stay within our guidelines, we need to add back 2.5 teachers.
That's correct.
To stay within the guidelines. A teacher in, I'm sorry, my papers are back at me. A teacher in 3rd grade at MEC, half a teacher at the kindergarten level at MEC, and a teacher in 1st grade in
Yes, that's
MEC.
correct.
Otherwise, we would be outside our guidelines. Are there any comments or questions?
I think, but I just want to verify this, that the differential in number of students as it relates to being outside the guidelines, correct me if I'm wrong, MEC, BEC kindergarten, it's 2 students, 1st grade, it's 1 student, and 3rd grade, it's 2 students.
That's correct.
Other comments or questions?
I'm just curious, how many total, if we bring back the 2, how many total elementary teachers then did we want to refer?
If you bring back the 2 positions, we should have our entire staff back according to the information I received today, because the other teacher, I believe, has accepted a position at another district.
Yeah, but how many elementary teachers were furloughed? We did furlough something.
Yes, we've lost positions. Yes, that's correct.
Right, I was trying to go back and see what the original number was. I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
How many we...
Well, the ones originally furloughed, one took a position elsewhere?
We had some retirements in the original furlough list. We had some retirements, and then so that took up 3 of the positions themselves.
And then one took a position elsewhere, I believe you said at the curriculum meeting?
One of the positions, remember, was a middle school position, and one of the positions from the furlough list, if you remember yourself, was a high school position. Also, was the phys ed position.
My point, though, is we went through all these vaccinations in the past couple of months, originally furloughing extra teachers and cutting went back and looking at class size, and just to put a human side to it, we're dealing with families who had no idea they were going to have a job or not. It just seems to me that this decision could have been made sooner instead of, I know we were trying to improve, but it does seem to me that we did more damage to our district than good. So.
Let me, because I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Had we made the decision 2 months ago, we would not have brought these people back because the numbers were less than our guidelines.
I'd go a step further. I'd say right now, I'd say that the predictions made by our staff have been pretty darn accurate. We're off by 1 or 2 students, and our enrollment projections going forward for the next year is another 100 student decline. So,
on the second, I think the original recommendation from administration, just off my top of my head again, so it never might fault. But I think the original recommendation from administration was to reduce by 5 teachers based on the numbers they had in June. I'm kind of curious as to where that actually fleshed out.
We're bringing 2 back.
well, quite frankly,
No, but I think we furloughed, was it 7 or
8.
8?
That's 5.
We really furloughed.
3 retirements and 5 furloughs.
Yeah, but it's a total of 8 positions that we got rid of. Right. So I'm curious as to how many we actually round up. Reducing from what we had in June to going into September.
We're still at 8.
I'm still at 8.
We haven't brought anybody back yet.
If we brought you back.
And realistically, I mean, you're talking, it's 2, like for kindergarten, it's 2 students. It's what's throwing us over. It's not.
Yeah, it could have went either way.
Right. If you didn't have 2
No way, no one
students
knew.
enrolled, and there's an argument that
We shouldn't.
you shouldn't,
Right.
you could have 1 or 2 classes with 1 student.
I agree.
So I don't think we did it.
We haven't voted on it yet. We don't even know if we're bringing 2 back.
Yeah, I think the point that I was trying to make is that we're projected to see enrollments decline another 100 students this this school year between September and May, and it seemed to me not to be prudent to bring back additional teachers when those enrollment statistics have been very accurate over the last few years that we've been tracking. So I wouldn't make any recommendation to bring anybody back at this point in time, because it would be one thing if it was 9 students or 7 students, but 1 or 2 in a classroom. We're actually under our policy at the AEC kindergarten.
I know you're saying 1 or 2, but in reality, you're affecting the whole class, right? It's not 1 student, you're affecting that whole class of 24, 25, 26 students, right? It's not one
Well, in
student.
kindergarten, it's 22 students, not 26.
But so you're affecting 22 students, not 1 student. Right?
Well, we could bring it in.
It affects the whole class if you're having.
Look, if you would like to suggest bringing in an aide or something like that to assist in the classroom, I think that's a more reasonable approach than bringing a whole other section.
I had discussed that at the curriculum instruction. I'm not so sure I would be comfortable with that for kindergarten. If we're talking about maybe 4th or 5th grade, and we're at 26, we're over a student or 2 in there, I might be inclined to agree to that. But I don't think the kindergarten classes is a hard classroom to take control of 23, 22 kids.
Maybe all the more reason to have an aide there.
We're actually the error of our size.
I think Immaculate has 25.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to do anything with the staffing?
Yeah, I make a motion to bring back 2.5 teachers at the elementary level.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Doty to bring back the 2.5 teachers, second by Mr. Rathke. Are there any comments or questions?
All right, yeah, I made a comment in the curriculum committee meeting, and we had our policies, and I think our staff needs to reflect the policy. If we don't like the policy, we need to change the policy, but we're going to live up to the policy. If that's clear, it's easy for me. So I think we need to, if we're going to keep the policy where it is, we need to have the staff that make that policy enforceable. We don't always change the policy, keep the policy if we don't like that. So that explains how all we go.
Well, I have a question then. In AEC, we're under policy. Does that mean we fire somebody?
Mr. Early explained in the curriculum committee meeting that if we furlough the position, that would put us over.
I'm just curious, so what happens in October when we're under a significant number of students then? Do we fire somebody in October?
That's an important entertainment.
You can. You can.
Are we really losing 100 students from the school year, from the start of September to the end of the school year in June?
At the elementary.
Or is it just that we're the incoming enrollees for kindergarten that happen in March and the enrollment that goes through August? Is that less than 100, about 100 students?
Actually, right now, you're a little bit less than 100. You're in the 60s right now, as of today. From the end of June till now. Anything forward to that would be a projection.
Okay. What my question is during the school year, are we losing just less than 100 kids? During the year, they pull out of all grades throughout the district.
That would be a projection. We don't know how many kids are going to leave for certain. There's been some projections that have been made, and we don't know where they're going to leave from, what grade level. So we're not sure about that. That's going forward.
But from last year to this year, we did lose almost 100.
Yeah, we've lost like 60-some students.
From June to June.
From June till now.
No, from June.
From
June
last
to June, we lost
September.
100.
From last September to now, we lost 100 students.
Last September, yeah.
Okay, 60 of those 100 were over the summer.
Right, and we're projected to lose.
No.
Because your graduating
He's saying
classes
from
of
September.
270 something, but less than 200 are coming in, or around 200 are coming in.
Right.
So it's not like we have a student population of 3,000. And during the school year, from September to June, we're losing 99 students.
The only problem with the 100 we're losing is, as Mr. Hurley just said, we don't know what grade we're from.
We did have last year in September, we lost 2 from Amity from September to June. We lost 2 from Amity kindergarten and 3 from Knoxville. You lost 9 in first grade, and you lost 5 in third grade, or second grade. I just looked at the first grade, so you did lose almost 5 kids from each grade, if not more, in the first 3 grades.
Which would put you,
If you pull September 14 and June 15.
right, which puts you underneath, well within our policy range on each of these classes.
Well, in line with Mr. Doty's motion, I've said all along I would not vote to exceed our guidelines. So that's my only comment. Other comments or questions? Motion by Mr. Doty to recall 2.5 teachers, seconded by Mr. Rathke. Mr. Basin.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
Yes.
Ms. Fradowski.
No.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, no. Mrs. Bites.
No.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-3.
Item 10, financial approvals. Motion to approve the agreement to participate in the school-based access program. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Radowski, second by Mr. Doty. Comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Basil?
Mr. Rathgeb,
Yes.
Ms. Fradowski,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites,
Yes.
Mr. Doty,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 11, personnel approvals. Is there a motion to approve the
11A through D as amended.
Second.
motion by Mr. Wolf, second by Mr. Rathgeb? Comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Basil?
Ms. Fradowski,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites,
Yes.
Mr. Doty,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb,
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 12, programs as revised under the agenda edits. Is there a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Radowski, second by Mr. Wolf.
See, as amended.
As amended.
Comments or questions?
It's as amended.
12.
All 12. A to G as amended. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Rexroyd for her thorough communication of the class sizes at the middle school. I really appreciate that, and I feel like we have a really good handle of what's going on, and I appreciate your diligence.
Yes, that generated several questions about, are we adding classes, are we adding teachers? And I said no, which is a clarification, but thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Basil?
Motion for 12A through G by Ms. Fradowski, second by Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites,
Yes.
Mr. Doty,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb,
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fradowski,
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 13, on policy, there is a revision that is the revised administrative guideline on the use of facilities. So is there a motion on?
There's no motion.
No, there is no motion, it's just the first reading.
What changed that?
Just what year that you revised?
From the old to the,
Well, we put in some flexibility for the administration.
There's no more.
We added some flexibility for the administration to negotiate rates instead of having hard term rates. Similar to what we did for the Taekwondo group that was bringing in, they couldn't afford the rate that was in there, so we put some flexibility in there.
Mr. Martino, this is the right spot to, I know we're just looking at the policy, but I actually have a question on the informational piece that we got for approvals. I can discuss that at the business note, that's appropriate there. This is not that policy, it's about one of the items that are in the informational for facilities use that we have currently. So I guess I'd actually do this.
You can discuss it now, we're talking use of facilities.
Well, in particular, I was looking at the policy, and I was a little confused by the Holman baseball group using the middle school fields for no fee. So I didn't know how they qualified as a no fee participant. I don't know if that goes to the business manager or that or.
And there was a question by Amity Township.
Yes, and then that was
That's
another.
the same thing, and apparently there was, it just fell through the cracks between our former athletic facilitator leaving and our new athletic director being appointed, and Mr. Hurley is setting up a meeting with Amity Township, Mr. McKnight, athletic director, for Monday soon.
Yep, Thursday, actually.
Okay, very good, yeah, I mean, we used to have those meetings on a regular basis between the joint operating commission there for the township and the school, for the middle school. Yeah, we've got a great facility over there, so we make sure we're communicating, so, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had talked to Mr. Hurley and we contacted Mr. McKnight, and then I went over to the township. And Chaz wasn't in that day, but they're setting up a meeting to make sure that the right notification goes to the township and the right fees are charged, and et cetera.
Thank you.
Yeah, it actually sent, Mr. Lyons had actually reached out to me and asked for our policy as we were working on it. So, you know, once this policy is approved, I was going to send it to them because that's something they wanted to tailor their policy up around what our policy is.
Great.
Just remember, it's an admin guideline.
The next item was the acknowledgement review of policy 238. This does say motion.
Yes. I'll make a motion
Mr. Suter, do we always
to,
vote on the policy?
just a second?
Yeah, I think we're all confused. Why is there?
We're not confused.
We're not confused? Maybe it's just me.
So does acknowledging and reviewing it, approve it? Or?
What we have to do, we still have to approve it, but we have to say we reviewed it again, and the solicitor did review it, and I have to submit it to PD with our safety report.
Okay, well, I will make a motion to approve the acknowledgement / review of policy 238.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Dowski, second by Mr. Wolf. Comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Basil.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bice?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathke?
Yes.
Mr. Fidalski?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Is there any old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. The item.
Actually, just a question. Was it curriculum instruction that was going to pick up the summer band camp this year? Or who was supposed to, I'm not sure which committee was supposed to pick that up.
But I thought it was actually your finance.
We can talk about it finance, but I
Well,
thought,
I mean, a lot of it, our discussion is going to revolve around the numbers. Is it self-sufficient, self-funded?
right.
Which I think was a lot of the concern. And then it's a question of, should it be an official activity, class, or should it be something else?
Okay.
The other piece of that is that, and I believe it was the committee of the whole meeting, but I referenced Mr. McKnight, and he has this whole idea for Blazer Summer, I believe he called it, which includes band camp and revenue generation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if we want to,
Just read.
if District, I don't know if District 5 wants to set up a committee of his own somewhere that could flesh this idea out. And, I might even suggest maybe that the middle school may be a better place than the high school, because we have all the fields over there, new fields in high school too, of course.
This is a very broad conversation. The band camp issue is a piece of it, which I think piques all of our interest. But I think we have the broader discussion regarding the Blazer Summer idea, in which I've had some conversations with Music Boosters, with the Blazer Foundation, with a number of groups already about this broad piece. And Mr. Shannon, who would really be, our athletic director, would be the driving point on the Blazer Summer. So it's multiple layers. This is just really a symptom of it, and a worthwhile symptom for us to dig in on. But I think things will crystallize a little more. We look at a broader pieces in, because to get people to be involved in the Blazer Summer, people who are already making money in their own little, so to speak, life room, there's going to have to be something in it for everybody. So that's really the part of bringing this collaboration together. Is how does everybody get a little bit to support their group and then support a bigger piece at large?
Well, I guess
much more to come.
The question becomes, what would it take to put this all together, and when would it be ready to present to, say, the Finance Committee?
Well, we discussed didn't we till October at the beginning of the whole meeting. I think that was, and I'll be ready certainly by then. If you want to, Mr. Basil, I think several people then said, let's do it out in small committee work, and then I can present multiple times as you go. I know I'd like to talk. So.
Well, I guess what I was curious about was, for the board, which domain should this drop into so that it's being pushed along and it gets to some point where it comes up for board consideration, number one. Number two, that committee then can help you in some way, whether it's gathering information, bringing people in for discussions on a more regular basis. You have some board involvement as it goes along, so that this agenda item or Blazer Summer idea, it gets fleshed out, and brought to fruition in some sort of organized process.
Mr. Martino would say, I think it's a great thing to dump onto the facilities committee since we're going to be using it.
Let me offer this, that I think maybe the best tactic here would be to present that committee as a whole where you all can see it. Because there's pieces for everybody here to take on committee-wise. There's facilities, there's finance, there's curriculum. And I think when we see the fleshed out piece, everyone will understand their role and their part in it. I think the best first step is committee of the whole.
Okay. I know when we did the activity fee, we structured an activity committee where we had like one or two board members, and we had the different principals and the booster groups, and I think it was a committee of 11 to move that issue through for consideration. I just wasn't sure if you needed assistance like that, or you just want to take the whole thing and.
I think I should present in draft style to you.
All right.
Okay, and then I think what you're saying makes the most sense. More people can come on board and make sure that we're honoring all pieces, not only by committee, but all the constituency and the community as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Moving on to new business, I believe this Media Resource Center discussion is also yours.
So this came up on the 10th. Actually, this had its origin or its nexus with Mrs. Torsia, Casey, Mr. Vance, and myself. And one of the problems that I know we all agree was that it was a shame that the library was only being used about half the time. So how could we really maximize the use? How can we also replicate really the 21st century or future, where our students are traveling in the future? And as much as I think we all have fond memories of libraries, they're not really used that way, okay? Although that's a certain skill set. And Mrs. Fox began to approach her about the concept of a media resource center. So that has taken roots, and we have found a way to do use staff instead of students being in study hall, having the library open and the media resource center open all 6 days. Staging the media resource center in the library. Mr. Matz has dedicated 30 laptops. We brought in Mr. Palmer for the Television Announcers Club. We have Mrs. Fox looking at a number of things that we'll be able to do down there, the newspaper, the yearbook group. So growing this tool out, plus allowing students to go down there and be able to use their laptops, their phones, as we talked about this issue of, I think Mrs. Blacksburg cost charging Mr. Blackman was negligible for the phone charges, but kind of a college experience, a hub experience building, if you will. So that piece has come to realization, and we had some little missteps thinking about how to fund this, and thought we could exercise the library budget. That really isn't the best way to go, and at that point we sought support from the Wages Foundation and from several yearbook clubs and some other clubs that had accounts to help fund it. So there's no additional cost, so to speak, on the district side. It's being funded by donation.
There was a donation, I believe.
Donation from Blazer Foundation for $3,000. They had a donation, different letter. $3,000 donation from Yearbook. And I spoke with Theater and Drama they're going to give $3,000 also for access to be able to do certain things, for the play and for some drama pieces. And, videotaping, for example, the auditions now at the high school since Mr. Hoffman is taking over. So just as an example, some other things to do. So some total of $9,000. Right now it's $5,500 in furniture. And then there are a number of things that Mrs. Fox wants to bring on. I really defer to her expertise as she needs our library science committee is special.
not have to approve accepting the donation? Or do we have to approve how to I'm looking at
We did not.
everybody on the board.
We did not get the donation yet.
If we receive when we receive the donation, you accept the donation.
And then we'll have to approve how the money's spent, because right now, all I've seen is money for furniture.
And that's where we're at right now with the furniture, PO order, moving forward, waiting on that opportunity to move forward. The question I think that we had with Mr. Small is a commitment letter sufficient? Or does it have to be check in hand? I mean, the funds are easy to come out of the yearbook, that's an internal account. The issue with Blazer Foundation, they didn't do the letter. So whatever we need to finish all the projects.
What I think I just heard is we can't even approve accepting the money until we have the money.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Is that?
I couldn't know.
He said when we have the money, we can then have a motion.
I think what you can tell them is that we won't not accept the money, right?
I understand. I'll speak with Mr. Mattson and we'll get the check back. Get it over to Mr. Small.
And if you would, I mean, you're saying that Mrs. Fox has other ideas on how to spend $3,500. Like,
so submit that to you.
I guess, yes, I think we'd like to hear what the other ideas are.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGray.
Thank you, Mr. McGray.
Mr. Ratzinger, you want to discuss something on their new business?
Yes, Mr. Marquino, this is regards to our teleconferencing policy. And just let me say, to be clear, this was not an easy discussion for me to actually bring up. And actually had a conversation with Mr. Schuler's guy, if it was possible to do this in an executive session, and he said no. So, in regards to Mr. Kurtz, and I wanted to make sure Mr. Kurtz was here to discuss this. I would have brought it up at the previous meeting, but he was unavailable, and Mr. Schuler was here anyway, so it kind of sinks in with everything. So, but the reason I bring this policy up is in regards to telling us how many voting meetings you're allowed to call into. Frankly, I probably wouldn't even brought this up, but I had a feeling I would rather have brought it out now than someone from the public bringing it up to us, so I think it's better to have the conversation amongst ourselves. So the policy reads that, let's see if I can find it. I believe it states that you're allowed to, you need to make a majority of the voting, regularly scheduled voting meetings. So that will be 11, we have 11 regularly scheduled voting meetings. So in essence, you have to make 6 to make the majority. Now I will say that Mr. Kurtz has been much better this year in doing that than your previous. If you looked at it, you would find that that was actually a violation of the policy that he did not make those meetings. And I truly know Mr. Kurtz has a very strong work ethic, and I know you're pulled in many directions. So I won't fault you as not wanting to be here for those meetings, but it is what it is. And now that you are running again, I just want to have confidence that you'll be able to make, follow the policy. Because my question goes into the point of if the board members can't follow our own policy, how do we enforce, our teachers, our employees, the policies we have? It makes us look just a bit.
I had a similar concern with that, and I think more to the point is who is tracking it and how is it being monitored? How do we know when a board member has reached their limit so that they can be notified? Isn't that what you're...
Well, it's not really being monitored. I mean, officially it is in a minute, so you can go back and look, but no one's really monitoring.
So it's sort of self-enforced at this point.
Well, and then you have to, my recollection when we crafted the policy also is every single meeting is scheduled as a voting meeting. Every single
maybe that's I assumed that we got committee of the whole and voting meetings, so I took them to be separate entities.
We have 22 meetings a year, and all those meetings are voting meetings. They're all advertised as voting meetings. So if somebody shows up for 11 of them, you know, it's not an issue.
Well, I think then we have to change how we list the minutes, because the minutes differentiate between committee of the whole and a voting meeting. Yeah. I mean, just to make sure that
That's what it says.
what it is.
Yeah, but we've been accused by the public of voting during committee of the whole meetings, and we do that. We advertise every single meeting as a voting meeting because we want to be sure that we can have a vote when we need to, and not have to defer it to another special meeting or 2 weeks later.
Now, policy, we were just informed that all the 0 policies came back from PSBA, as you know. This will be one of them that we got back as revised. If we're going to review it, make changes to it, to put a tighter definition, now would be the time to do it. We could agree to what that change would be.
Yeah, I think, you know, back when we were putting this policy together, you know, I was a strong advocate of having I think at the time we called it a Skype policy, okay? Because I've called in via Skype to participate in some of the meetings when I wasn't able to be in here. And there were certain board members that didn't want people, if you couldn't physically be here, they didn't want you participating in the meetings. And there was a lot of what I would call, I thought it was unethical behavior, where votes were being cast and held when people walked in the room and could do a head count and see, okay, I see how many board members are here, I see how many people support this, I'm going to make a motion to do whatever, and I've got the votes. And so those types of shenanigans were going on, and one of the things I was concerned about was, look, we're all volunteers, we all have jobs, we all have other lives, and if somebody wants to spend 3 hours on a phone or in front of a computer to participate in a board meeting because they can't be here, by God, they should be allowed to do it, and they should be allowed to vote and participate in what we're doing. That's what they're elected to do, that's what they volunteered to do, so why would you want to exclude them from participating in these meetings? Other people on the board felt differently than I did on that, and so what you have in that policy is a compromise of having to be physically here for a certain number of meetings. I'm in favor of not having that restriction at all, because you never know when somebody, because of their job, may relocate on a temporary basis and then be back, and should that preclude them from participating in what goes on at these meetings? I don't think so. I think we're all intelligent people. We all understand what the issues are. We can all participate in these meetings. And in business, a lot of work and trillions of dollars of decisions are being made via conference calls and Skype and teleconferencing. I can't understand why we can't make decisions as it relates to our school district in the same fashion. But that's my opinion on it.
I hope you're not arguing that we don't have to enforce the policy.
No, what I'm arguing is if we're going to modify the policy, I'd like to see a looser definition of how many times you have to be here for a particular...
What needs to be tightened up is how we're going to enforce the policy is the point that's being made. It's not what the policy is.
I understand the point.
And what do we do if it's been violated?
You know, I would have to disagree because, I mean, this is local government at its best. And you're here, you know, you're elected, folks elect you want you to be here. They don't. Well, I mean, yes, and definitely you're going to be away from business. You're going to be sick, but to never show up at a meeting, that's. I
don't think we ever said never show up.
But is that where we're opening the door to?
I think the word "never" is
well, for nothing.
It's not appropriate. But I think second of all, actually, we have a policy, but the state has a policy which supersedes our policy. So I don't really know that we can do anything. I mean, we can say we'd like to change the policy or tighten the policy, but the state sets the guidelines for elected officials. And unless somebody's committed a felony, I don't think there's a whole lot that you can do.
One of them is that they have to abide by the policies. The 000 policies.
I don't think the school code says that.
I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it was in our...
Well,
Mr.
Seaver's
waiting
right
to
inside.
Yeah.
Well, wait,
The constituents have the ability to vote or not vote who they want in office.
There is something in the
don't
law.
have that ability.
There are repercussions for board members, Mr.
Before Mr. Subers chimes in, let me say that I read on social media questions about Mr. Kirk's attendance. And my belief is that he has made better than 50% of the meetings in person. So I don't think that's an issue. I also agree with Mr. Basil that in this day of telecommunications, I don't think there should be a number that you have to attend in person. And I'm glad you opened the door for that because I've been thinking that policy needs to be amended. That's my personal opinion. The last thing I wanted to say was, you mentioned, and I don't think it should enter into this discussion, but you mentioned it, that he's running again for office. And I think the people that vote will determine whether they're satisfied with his attendance or not.
I don't think there's anybody running against him.
Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, that's because he won the primary that he ran in. So, when that policy comes, Mr. Wolf, I think we need to look at it and determine as a board whether we need to enforce it as it reads or modify it. And I think if we're going to bring up a specific board member, then we should know whether he's attended the proper number of meetings or not.
Again, the wording was go schedule voting meetings. So that was my mistake, not mistake. But I interpreted the committee of the whole and voting as separate. And I'm just curious, because I think if I look in the past, your comments in the public, they were different than what you want now.
My comments?
I believe.
I don't think about this issue. I mean, you're talking to a person that's never missed a board meeting. So.
Oh, I know. But I think it's interesting that now you want to change the policy to accommodate an individual as opposed to looking in the past, if someone had asked you, you would have said differently.
I'd like to make a few comments here. This seems to be a conversation that Mr. Rathke had planned, and he mentioned an assumption made that that was incorrect, and that was in regard to voting meetings. And Mr. Basil clarified that all meetings are advertised as voting meetings. Those assumptions can be clarified by speaking to the board president who sets the agenda. And it's his service, the board, when board members are aware of these discussions in advance, springing them on being in the meeting is not an ideal way to go about these things. Further, I think that board members who try to participate should be commended as a matter of fact. I know personally that I've spent thousands of dollars out of my own pocket that I don't see that money back from the district, and though we can request for mileage, I have not. Since my first few months on the board, I've had a pocket to attend meetings. It's a long commute. I believe that the services that provide the district as a former student are invaluable. I think the work we did at the committee meeting before this proves that. So I would like to say that I'm disappointed that you did not have a conversation with me personally before you brought this up in public. I think that we could have talked about this, and if you had concerns, I would have thought that just courtesy would dictate you have a conversation with me before bringing it up. So
again, I wanted to do an executive, but I was told.
Well, we can always have a conversation one-on-one, but yeah, I think this is important to look into, and I thank board members for voicing their thoughts on this. And additionally, the member public knows about my plans and my education, and I think it would be hypocritical for me not to further my education as somebody who's sitting on this board trying to help others in great education. So me stifling my own educational development in order to sit here a few nights a month in person when technology allows me to participate remotely, I think that is that's hypocritical, and the members of the public and the voting community are aware of how I do this, and they voted for me 4 years ago, they voted for me 4 months ago. And to be completely honest, I think we're seeing right now some people who disagree with my approach to issues try to find another way to silence me because they did not succeed at the ballot box. So that's just my thought on the issue.
We still need to hear from Mr. Subers how we enforce our own policies.
I was asked the question of whether or not it could be raised in executive session. I limited my discussion and analysis to that issue. And this type of issue doesn't fall within the specified exception for an executive session. I didn't analyze the policy, research or attendance or anything like that. I guess the implication would be the policy decides whether or not you're considered in attendance. The school code provision that Ms. Fletch references goes to whether removal of the school board member. One of the reasons for removal of a school board member is failure to attend 2 successive meetings without, where it's not due to sickness or necessary absence. And how you define necessary absence is open to dispute or discussion. But again, the policy defines, would be interpreted or relied upon to define whether or not you were in attendance. And then if you were not in attendance per policy, theoretically, 2 successive meetings, somebody could try to bring an action to remove you. But there would be the defenses set forth in the school code, as I mentioned. And then whether or not, as far as enforcement of board policy, it's a board policy. That's up to the board to enforce, or that you have the authority to waive enforcement if that's what the majority of the board determines.
Thank you, Mr. Subers. Let me just say, since this was brought up publicly, and this is just my opinion, but Mr. Kurtz, in the 2 years I've been on the board, works as hard or harder than anyone on the board, and that includes me. So I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Okay, on the policy side, since we have everyone here, please do us a favor and give me some guidance on what we want to, how we want to reword this, or is it simply redefine what a voting meeting is to the committee of the whole and the standard voting meeting?
Did we get, you said we
have voting, it says voting meeting.
The 000 policy that we just got back from the
But we didn't look at them yet. We haven't seen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think we need to see that first to see what it says.
Right. Now would be the time for that definition. That would be something easy to put in there. Because right now, if we look at our minutes, it says committee of the whole and then voting meeting. Unless we have a special voting meeting.
I would recommend that clarification be made in policy. That's easy enough. And if it's in dispute, that's something that the board could decide relatively easily as to what the definition is for the purposes of that policy.
I just want to be sure that as a board we're careful, because this issue of necessary absence isn't the first time this has been brought up. So there's a group of board members who didn't like decisions that were being made, and they targeted a specific board member because he was traveling for business. And so they were trying to argue that he wasn't here for 2 consecutive meetings because that wasn't necessary absence. And I don't know about anybody else, but my job is necessary. Right. Just like I'm sure Mr. Kurtz's education is necessary. So I think trying to use policy as a weapon to silence a board member, whether you agree or disagree with them, is a dangerous road to go down. And quite frankly, my goal had always been to do as much as possible to include board member participation, regardless of someone's position on an issue. We had board members that would show up to a meeting on a Monday night and leave so they could get home from Monday night football. Okay, so there was some cohesion going on in terms of the agenda to make sure all the important issues were at the front so that person could vote on them. And then we'd have a timeout in the meeting, a break, and that person wouldn't come back from the break and be there for the balance of the meeting when we were discussing other issues or voting on other items. Now, I think all the items on an agenda are important and worth somebody voting on, but that was going on with regularity. And nobody had any objection to that because physically they were there for an hour or two. And then they took off. I mean, I think that's worse than somebody calling in and spending 3 hours on a phone or 3 hours on a computer participating in a meeting. So this this issue has been going on for a long, long time. I think the fact that Mr. Kurtz, or any board member for that matter, takes the time to call in, I would like to see when the board members are considering the policy that, you know, this issue of the majority goes away, because quite frankly, I don't think it should be never. You know, that's ridiculous. People need to come to the meetings, but at the same time, you know, having some sort of absolute number on there that defines whether or not someone's participating, I think is foolish.
I align with Mr. Kurtz more often than I don't, but I do believe that public servants should attend the meetings in public, quite frankly. And I did have a private conversation with you about my dismay that you weren't making more meetings, and you just slumped it off anyway. So I think the policy, as it stands, should be enforced. I don't think it's a matter of whether we like you or not. The policy says majority of the voting meetings, then I think it's a realistic expectation for you to be here and held accountable and participate in the live discussion.
I think that we need clarification on what the legal definition of voting meeting is. We advertise all 22 meetings as voting meetings.
I agree, but that's not the discussion we're having. We're having a rah-rah session for you being able to make as many as, or few as you choose.
I don't think we're having a rah-rah session. I think there's a lot of disagreement and discussion here, Mrs. Bites. I don't think anyone's...
Let's find out whether there's actually a violation here, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
We actually know if there's a violation?
That's my point.
Right.
We don't even know if there's been a violation of the policy.
Because if we'd actually done, if we'd
We're not
brought it
having
up
that
and done the
discussion.
homework, we would know. Instead of blindsiding people at a public meeting.
Well, that's what's come
It's
up
clear
here.
to me, voting meeting is a voting meeting.
But do you know how many
I
voting
totally
meetings?
agree.
Do you know how many he's attended?
That's why we're having this discussion.
No,
How are we
no,
enforcing
we
it?
don't know why
Who's
we're having
tracking?
the discussion.
You don't know, nobody knows. That's the discussion we should be having. Is who is tracking it so that we are in compliance with our own policies?
So how
It's
far back do
simple.
you
We're
want to
making
go?
this so personal. We're attacking each other.
He's been on the board
Are
for
we
3.5
compliant?
years.
How do we see if
How
that's
far
compliant?
back do you want to go?
What's done is done. That's, we're not
It's going forward.
Yes.
So that's what you want going forward?
I think he said that.
Okay, I do have a question though to understand the policy. The policy says you have to attend in public more than half, correct?
Yes.
But you don't have to attend every meeting. If I miss 4 meetings a year, I miss 4 meetings a year. I can choose to Skype them or call them, or I can just miss them, correct?
Right.
So if he called in too many and he just didn't call in one of those, he wouldn't have been here, but
It wouldn't have been a problem.
it wouldn't have been a violation. So
Can't
we're
miss 2 in a row.
actually upset
You can't
that he
miss 2 in a
violated
row.
a policy
For necessary absence.
allegedly by
Okay, well,
calling
he
in
hasn't
and
missed any for-
participating, which is what you wanted. I don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah, what's happening here is he's being the discussion is we ought to penalize a board member for participating too much.
Right.
We're not
That's the
penalizing
problem.
anybody. We're talking about enforcing a policy.
But-
How are we enforcing it? Are we enforcing it? And who is monitoring it? It's a legitimate question.
Mr. Wilk,
Shouldn't
you have
turn into a
the
personal issue.
teleconference policy in front of you.
I do not. Maybe you just have your computer down, you're looking at it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
capital.
right here.
If it's capital, it's a voting meeting. If it's small, then it means all the
We
meetings. That's
we
simple.
voted
I
lots of
thought it was
different meetings. Are you
capitalized, but I
going to
can't
wait
get it
until
up
we
either.
tabulate at the end of the year how many meetings we voted at, including committee of the whole, and then go back and
As I said,
retroactively
my
decide
understanding-
who was or wasn't at a meeting, whether they
These.
violated the policy?
No, my understanding it was these.
As being on the board when we adopted the policy, I assumed it to be any meeting that we could vote at, which would be any meeting. But that may not be what it says, but you're
It says voting meeting.
asking-
We advertise to the public it's a voting meeting.
Mr. Wilk, do me a favor and read what the policy says.
Oh, the whole thing.
No, there's a policy on teleconference.
Yes, the whole thing.
You can thank me later for the spark of the Facebook conversations about that.
Participation in meetings via a communication device may not exceed the majority of all regular scheduled voting meetings in a calendar year for any board members. That's what the paragraph says. And my suggestion is to clarify what voting is, including the committee of the whole and our scheduled voting meeting.
Now, I've been board president for a year and 8 months. And I've been told since I became board president that every meeting is advertised as a voting meeting.
Again, I'm going to go back to what our minutes say. Our minutes differentiate
The title of the meeting. But they're all, are they advertised as a voting meeting?
Okay, well, can I make a motion to modify the policy to include all, or have the policy committee look at changing the definition, or whatever you would say, to any regularly scheduled meeting, whether it's committee of the whole or whatever.
I said that. I said it would.
Well, I'm making an official motion,
Okay.
so we can wrap this
It's
up.
official. We will change, we will define in here, if the policy members agree when we take this up, that we will define what the voting meeting means is the committee of the whole and the voting meeting. Okay? Done.
Thank you, Mr.
And you may want to include any other special voting meeting that we have.
But that's not regularly scheduled.
I'm just saying, somebody may not be there for it. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's true, because you don't want them to get fired because they didn't attend.
They participated too much. We don't want that from our board members.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and the policy committee will work on that. Yes.
We will most happily take it up.
Is there any other new business?
Sir.
Presentations by the public on issues.
I'm getting up. I thought you already had your 3 minutes. The Dandy Boone School Board definitely goes by their policies for bullying and discriminating handicaps. Enough said tonight.
No.
Shane Cockle, 830 Geigertown Road. Sorry that the meeting turned into all about Mr. Kurtz, but the one thing I would say is, although some people might disagree with what he says, he is doing his job. Doesn't mean someone else in that same situation would be stepping up to the plate and doing the job that he's doing. So when you're writing your policy and you're thinking about that, although he's doing an excellent job making sure he's calling in for meetings, even though he's not here, he's still calling in. You might come across people who might take advantage of that down the road. So your policy that you're writing now, you also have to consider the next person coming into your guys' seats. So I consider him, if he's calling in, as being here. In the beginning of the movie, if you're taking attendance, and he's in attendance, but that's just my opinion. But you might come across someone who will not be making that phone call because they're doing fishing. They might find that as a necessity, or vacationing, or at college having fun. If he's doing his job, doesn't mean the next person sitting in this place will be doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Seeing no other presentations by the public, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.